2025 meeting of the House Public Safety Committee to order. The quorum is present. If we don't commit our work today, which I sure hope we do, the committee's 4:45 adjournment time, we will recess and reconvene in this room at approximately 6 today, or at the call of the chair. There is a Ways and Means hearing in between. Before we begin our meeting, I want to remind everyone that the committee expects proper decorum at all times. All dialogue goes through the chair. Signs are not allowed in the committee room. There will be no outburst or clapping. There is no standing, sitting in the sidewalks or aisle. If a combination is needed, communicate with the sergeant staff. There will be consequences if there is a disruption. Thank you to the sergeant arms who are present for helping maintain decorum in the committee room. Representative Feist, you seem like someone who has read the minutes.
I've read them very carefully, and I would move those minutes. Oh yeah, so moved.
Representative Feist has read the minutes, and she moves that the minutes from the March 5th, 2025 meetings be approved. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries, and the minutes of the March 5th, 2025 meeting are approved. First bill on our agenda today is House File 7. We heard this bill in Public Safety Committee on February 11th, and we took testimony at that time. We'll not be taking additional testimony on the bill today. We re-referred the bill to the judiciary, where it was amended to put guardrails on law enforcement's use of public tracking devices on stolen vehicles. Judiciary sent the bill back to public safety because the fiscal note had been received. We knew there would be cost to it. We amended the bill last week by removing the language requiring persons convicted of sexual conduct who receive a stay of adjudication to register as a predatory offender. At Lead Muller's request, we laid over the bill until we received the fiscal note. We now have received the fiscal note on House File 7 as amended. Representative Lead Muller, do you still move the bill back to judiciary?
I do, Mr. Chair, because I'm looking at the revised fiscal note, and it still has a cost to the courts and to the Public Defense Board, which is in the purview of that committee. And I don't believe that they had the fiscal note at the time that their committee heard this. So I would move to re-refer this to judiciary.
Chair Muller, and did you want that roll call?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, I remember you roll
I
called
did.
last time.
I do. Thank you.
All right, Chair Muller has moved that the bill be re-referred to judiciary. Should note that we did account for all the cost imposed to the other agencies in our budget, as Chair Muller did when she chaired the committee in 2023. That said, we will be going to the roll call.
Hey, Chair?
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you just clarify what you meant? You said that we included the costs in our budget. What was that meaning? I'm sorry if I'm being dense here. I just didn't understand.
That was part of the fiscal note, and we will adjust for that. I have spoken with Ways and Means Committee people, and we will account for that when it gets to Ways and Means.
And Mr. Chair, just to follow up, you're saying then that our committee, that the money will come out of our committee's budget to pay for what would have been in the Judiciary Committee's budget?
I will adjust for it out of the.
Okay, that's what you meant. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, that's it. Take the roll.
Novotny,
No.
Whitty,
No.
Muller,
Aye.
Berg,
Aye.
Bliss,
No.
Curran,
Aye.
Duran,
No.
Engen,
No.
Feist,
Aye.
Greenman,
Aye.
Carter,
No.
Collins,
Aye.
Hudson,
No.
Johnson,
Aye.
Pinto,
Aye.
Ream,
Aye.
Rapinski,
No.
Schwartz,
No.
Steer,
No.
With 9 yeses and 10 nos, the motion to re-refer to judiciary fails. I now move House File 7 as amended to the Committee on Ways and Means, and I would like a roll call. The clerk will take the roll.
Novotny,
Yes.
Whitty,
Yes.
Moeller,
No.
Berg,
No.
Bliss,
Yes.
Curran, Duran,
Yes.
Engen,
Yes.
Feist,
No.
Greenman,
No.
Harder,
Aye.
Hollins,
No.
Hudson,
Yes.
Johnson,
No.
Pinto,
No.
Ream,
No.
Rapinski,
Yes.
Schwartz,
Yes.
Steer,
Yes.
With 10 ayes and 9 nays, the motion passes, and House File 7 is re-referred to Ways and Means Committee.
And Mr. Chair,
Representative Pinto.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Did we just spend $4.2 million from our committee budget with no discussion at all? Because we had discussed the bill, but we didn't have the fiscal note with us. We just got the fiscal note, right? And again, sorry if I missed that, but this is the first time we had the fiscal note, and we went straight to a vote. But we hadn't had the fiscal note before, so we didn't discuss anything about the money or about the fact that we, I guess I'm confused, since we don't have a supplemental budget forecast, we're waiting on federal cuts, et cetera. We were going to make some points about the fact that spending even a dime from our committee's budget would be concerning, but we didn't even discuss, actually, I'm sorry, I said 4.2 million, but it's actually $8.4 million from our committee budget that just got spent without any discussion. So I would encourage maybe in the future, when we're going to spend even a dollar, we probably just want to have a quick discussion about the actual spending of the money. Thank you.
Representative Pinto, we don't have targets yet, and I do anticipate a vigorous discussion in Ways and Means. Representative Engen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd just like to note that the newfound fiscal conservatism of my colleagues after a year in which we increased the state budget by 40%, spent an $18.5 billion surplus, raised taxes $10.5 billion. I think that we
Mr.
can
Chair,
spend
this is out of
$8 billion.
order,
We'll be moving
Mr.
on.
Chair.
That's enough.
Next bill on the agenda is House File 697. Chair Baker, please come to the table with your testifiers. Chair Baker, since you are not a member of this committee, I will move House File 697 before the committee. Since your bill includes a general appropriation to the Department of Public Safety, we will lay the bill over for possible inclusion in committee omnibus. Chair Baker, I believe you have also author's amendment, A1 amendment. I will move your amendment before the committee. Please explain your amendment.
Let's see. What is the amendment? Let's see. I don't think I got a copy of that. I need a copy of that. One moment, Mr. Chair.
Nope.
So it goes from Mr. Chair, thank you. I just didn't get briefed out quite on the A1 amendment. What it does is it inserts the agency, the county, and local emergency management organizations instead of the Homeland Security. So that's just a technical change, I'm told.
Thank you,
Get the bill.
Representative Baker. Is there any discussion on the A1 amendment? All in favor of the A1 amendment signify by saying, Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Baker. Just so that I'm clear, we're moving it from the Federal Department of Homeland Security to Minnesota jurisdiction? Am I wrong?
Let me get it. Let me phone a friend here. I don't want to misspeak that. I just want to, would you just come up and speak to this for me? Would you do that? Thank you. Would you move over for a second? Thank you. Thank you, members. I just, this was kind of coming in. Would you do this for me? Yeah, just, thank you.
So if we could have the new testifier state her name and
Yes.
answer the question or begin your testimony.
That's it.
Mr. Chair, Representative, the change is to remove it from the
Could you
director.
state your full name,
of-
please?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm Tara Good. The change is to remove it from the Director of Homeland Security, which is the Minnesota Department of Homeland Security, to just the department, and then to add the local representatives to, local county emergency managers to that as well.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you so much. My apologies.
Any other discussion on the bill or the amendment? All in favor of the amendment, say aye. All
Aye.
those opposed, say nay. The amendment is adopted. Chair Baker, please begin your bill or explain your bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I sure appreciate the time today. I want to say that today nearly 3 million Minnesotans live directly in a weather gap. This is 3 million just Minnesotans. Without full weather coverage in every corner of the state, we don't get the full picture until weather is literally upon us. Even in this high-tech era, we send trained weather spotters literally out in the storm to spot what might be happening and then call it in. On a personal level, this issue hit home for us in Candioi County on May 12th, 2022, when Ryan Leif Erickson, a veteran firefighter, dedicated lifelong public servant, and one of my county constituents, answered the call, similar to those he had answered for decades. He went to a weather spot during a severe storm outbreak, and Ryan lost his life that night when undetected, unwarned storms blew a grain bin over and crushed him. This event inspired a group of our local and state emergency managers to band together and find some solutions so this doesn't happen again. The only way to solve the problem is with a new weather observations that can complete the weather picture for our whole entire state. While infrastructure investments can take years and cost hundreds of millions of dollars, this group has found innovative ways to address this problem quickly and economically. Rather than wait for a solution to be handed to them, they started to work with themselves and proven that new observations given more lead time and accuracy during weather events and can make the difference operationally and when lives might be at risk. House File 697, Mr. Chair, accelerates a statewide solution and ensures every state agency, local, public, safety offices, and our constituents have access to the weather observations that they need to make informed decisions about their personal safety. With that, Mr. Chair, I have Mr. Ace Bonema from Candioi County to take it to the next step.
Yes, if you could have your testifier state the full name and begin their testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Ace Bonema, B-O-N-N-E-M-A. I'm the Emergency Management Director for Candioi County, and I'm here on behalf of the Association of Minnesota Emergency Managers. And today I'm here to ask for your support of House File 697, which will accelerate weather radar gap filling in the state for National Weather Service partners and will provide supplemental radar data to selected state agencies, local emergency managers, and county public safety answering points. I've been with Candioi County for over 34 years, starting as a 911 dispatcher. Since the beginning of my career, I've been told that we were in a weather radar gap, but there wasn't anything we can do about it. With your help, we can do something about it. These gaps are a primary reason the National Weather Service requests counties to send out weather spotters to help relay what is happening closer to the ground. The Weather Service is good at picking up higher supercells like F2 tornadoes, but there's a lot of weather happening in the gap that the radars aren't seeing. On May 12, as Representative Baker said, on May 12, Ryan Erickson's pager went off saying storm spotters were needed. Ryan was a personal friend of mine, and Ryan wasn't some rookie. Ryan had over 45 years of experience with the Blunkiest Fire Department, many of those years serving as the chief. As Ryan was getting ready to leave his property to go weather spotting, he was crushed by a grain bin in a storm. Radar at the time of the 911 call from Ryan's wife, Kelly, showed a storm coming, but nothing to indicate something strong enough to blow a grain bin over where Ryan was. On the slides, you can see two images. In the circle is the city of Blunkiest. That's where Ryan's house was. On the left, you can see a view from 6,000 feet above ground, and on the right, you can see 9,000 feet above ground, and that's at the time of the 911 call. And we're being told that that's the best image that the National Weather Service could see at the time because they can't see below in that weather radar gap. It's not just tornadoes that make these weather radar gaps so dangerous. On December 23rd, 2022, Christmas Eve, we had several stranded motorists along Highway 7 in our county due to snow and whiteout conditions. If it wasn't for the heroic efforts of the State Patrol, MnDOT, County Public Works, and local emergency services, we would have had multiple fatalities. Many of those traveling were from the metro area and seemed so surprised because the radar looked clear. Mr. Chair and committee members, I want to thank you for your time and ask that you support this supplemental weather radar bill. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Next testifier, go ahead and state your full name and begin your testimony, please.
My name is Eric Wagge. It's spelled W-A-A-G-E. I'm the Emergency Management Director for Hennepin County, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Association of Minnesota Emergency Managers. Mr. Chair, committee members, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm here to discuss, of course, House File 697, which will provide the resources for emergency managers and emergency responders to see storms where they should be seeing them. Currently, 72 Minnesota counties and 8 of the 11 tribal lands have National Weather Service radar coverage issues. This means that a large chunk of Minnesota cannot clearly see dangerous weather. And especially deadly events like tornadoes may not be detected in time or may not be detected at all. A few areas in Minnesota are completely beyond the range of National Weather Service radar, so effectively they have no coverage. Other places have this radar gap, which is caused by the straight radar beam not deviating from its station and continuing to travel upward in the atmosphere, and the curvature of the Earth dropping the ground level down. So the area in between is the radar gap. The further away from the radar station, the deeper the gap, and they may reach altitudes up to 10,000 feet above ground level. A lot of really dangerous activity is occurring between 2,000 and 8,000 feet above ground level, including deadly summer tornadoes and winter snow squalls. The National Weather Service is hoping to upgrade its system of weather radar sometime around 2040. But it doesn't intend to add any radar stations. So this means that this gap will continue even with the next upgrade. At this point, you may be asking yourself, why is a Metro emergency manager up here talking about radar gaps in greater Minnesota? First of all, it's an honor for me to aid my colleagues in the wider area of Minnesota who have to deal with this problem. It is a significant problem. It's a deadly problem. It endangers not only the public but responders. But I also point out that we have a keen interest in Hennepin County, at least in watching storms as they evolve and develop and approach us. We want to have the time and space to provide adequate warning to our Metro residents and make sure that we're prepared for unanticipated events and things that may pop up that's unforecasted, and we can confirm or deny if the forecast is going to overperform or underperform. So these spotty radar service areas increase the risk to all Minnesotans and visitors to Minnesota. People like to live, play, and work in these areas that are undercovered. All Minnesotans expect and deserve timely and accurate warning as these dangerous weather threats head their way. So this proposal helps all Minnesotans, but it helps protect my county's residents as well while they're at home at the Metro or while they're away enjoying the rest of Minnesota. So hopefully we can address this weather radar data gap, which is crucial to keep everyone safe, and I appreciate your consideration for this proposal. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to start out with a question. As a pilot, private pilot, I use a program called ForeFlight. Would the information that is gathered by these local radar units be able to be used by private vendors, fed to these different radar programs?
So we have one of the vendor representatives that might be able to answer that question as well.
Thank you. Please
Hi,
state your
Mr.
name
Chair.
again. I didn't catch it the first time.
My name is Tara Good. Mr. Chair, the information that we would be providing to the state of Minnesota and the local emergency managers would not be available through that mechanism to the private vendors, but private vendors are eligible to purchase that information as well for their own platforms and dashboards. And that is a typical model in which we work in many other states.
Thank you. And what would the time delay be between that image being scanned and then available to the different sites? How long is the delay in the transmission?
Our scan strategies are in line with what the National Weather Service provides, but faster in many cases, and it's normally about a 3-minute scan strategy. The way the scan strategy works is dependent on the weather situation. So if there is a convective event, it might add a little bit of time because they're trying to provide the appropriate scan for that certain situation, but it's normally around 3 minutes, sometimes faster.
Thank you. Members, questions for Chair Baker or Representative Greenman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Baker. I actually have been randomly talking about this weather gap with Senator Kupek for about 2 years. And it is great to have a meteorologist in the Senate who really understands it and was speaking passionately about it. And so when this bill came up, I gave him a call and sort of went through the backstory and history of the policy solutions of trying to solve and really deal with these gaps. I have a few questions just about how this will work. One, which is, I think that the idea was 8 weather stations to solve the gaps. Am I right there? And I guess let me just ask my question. What is, if those are our gaps, what is the rest of the market being served by now?
Take that, Ace. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Representative Greenman,
Mr. Bonema.
Bonema. Yep.
the National Weather Service is currently using what's called S-band technology. That was in the blue circles on the screen, you can see the best coverage for those. The yellow is considered diminished coverage, and you can see my county and where Ryan was killed is in that diminished coverage. And then the white is there's minimal coverage, and then the gold with the nothing below 10,000 feet. The current S-bands, I kind of look at it like the old 57 Chevys. They're like solid. They're really good to go. There are other types of radars, C-bands that might do the trick, might cover a broader area. Our committee looked at, should we come to the legislature and ask to purchase something like that? What a company like Terra's company is using is an X-band radar. They're a bit smaller. They fit on top of a water tower. We were able to get one placed in the city of Wendell. That's in that diamond there. And it was beneficial. The Weather Service issued some snow squall warnings already with that radar. So the S-band radars have a coverage probably of 80 miles optimum, I believe. And the X-bands are about 60 miles. But looking at some of the graphics and stuff from the newer technologies, there's pros and cons on each system. One of the biggest things that I want to make sure to mention is that the National Weather Service is our partners. We rely on them heavily. They're the warning points, and it's great that we can work together to provide and fill in these gaps to serve the public better. I don't know if that answers your question. Thank you.
Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I really appreciate that. And so I guess my next question, given that we are just the state here trying to fill a few gaps, is that a couple of days ago it was reported that the Trump administration may cut NOAA and the National Weather Service is a big part of that by about 20%. And I'm wondering how that will both impact that map, the gaps, but also the interaction between what we're talking about here and making sure that people get what I hope we all know, which is the public good of being able to have access to the best radar.
Representative Baker.
Probably Mr. Bonema.
Mr. Bodema.
Mr. Chair, Representative Greenman, I believe that the Weather Service has had issues with funding in the past, so this isn't the first time that they've been faced with a crisis of, are we going to be in business tomorrow? However, having these radars will give us, whether they're there or not, is going to give us a clearer picture. It's going to be more eyes to the sky. I believe it's one of the reasons that the National Weather Service hasn't tried filling this gap, because it would literally take billions of dollars to try and fix this gap across the country if you look at the national map. I kind of relate it to law enforcement a little bit. We don't rely on the feds just to take care of our law enforcement. We have our state police, we have our county police, we have our local city police. If we all work together on these solutions, we have a better solution for all of our citizens. And by doing this public-private partnership, instead of trying to come up with the millions and millions of dollars that we would need, and then once we get the capital expenditure, we would still have to run a data center, have maintenance and those types of things. Now we're working with a private company that can also, hopefully, the company that gets this will sell the contract so that the pilots would be able to get it, or the farmers and stuff. But if they're selling their information to insurance companies or something like that, we hope they make money, because then they're going to be maintaining the system. If their competition comes in and they want to find a water tower across the town to put one of their radars, I will gladly help them put that there too, because more eyes to the sky is what we're looking for in this situation.
Representative Greenman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate that. I actually want to make a clarification, and I think when I talked to Senator Kupek, if we do this, and we're not, to your point, we're not building, it sounded like it was going to be cost prohibitive to have the state build the infrastructure itself. But my understanding, or I hope my understanding, I'm interested in your answer, is if we do this, the data that we're paying for in the contract, that would have the same kind of public access that the National Weather Service has. Is that accurate, or is it data that we're going to contract with and people are still going to have to pay for?
Representative, or Mr. Bonema.
Mr. Chair, Representative Greenman, it's my understanding that the data itself and what the public answering safety points, the emergency managers will be able to see. We can go in, see historic data and stuff. The public would be able to go to a website and see live data. So they would be able to see, you know, if we got a graduation, what's happening in this part of the world, and they'd be able to get that live feed. They wouldn't be able to go back and do some of the historical digging and stuff unless they subscribe to the contract service. Now, this is kind of getting those radars quickly. It's getting them in the state. It's getting us access. After this contract is done, if the state of Minnesota says we don't have money for this, at least the radars are in place and they can still partner with the National Weather Service partners or whoever who are still going to be providing those warning points to our citizens. So even if we get the radars built and walk away, that information is still getting in the right hands to the people that are saying, blow the sirens.
Representative Curran.
Thank you, Chair.
Can I,
Can you, quick question, Representative Greenman.
thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's actually not a question, and I really appreciate this because I think we're trying to solve a problem, and it's a problem that I know that you all have been working on for a long time, and that has life-threatening consequences. What I just want to make sure that we're doing here, both as we think about both the state role, but also the federal role, the reason that the National Weather Service matters so much across the country, the reason that we want to do this in a way that has public access, is I want to make sure that the weather and access to the weather and the forecasting is a public good, and that it's not something that people have to pay AccuWeather for, or that only the businesses that can afford it or have a contract get access to it. I think it is a public good. It's like infrastructure in a lot of ways. And so my concern with the NOAA cuts are, in the last Trump administration, there was a real concern that what they were doing was privatizing that data so that only people who paid for it had access. I believe in public goods. I believe in this bill because people need access to that, and in those areas where it's white and as you mentioned, the safety concerns. I just want to make sure, and Chair Baker, I think we share this, that as we're investing resources, we make sure that the public and that the businesses in our communities get access to that data, have access to the weather forecasting, and that we protect, frankly, NOAA and the National Weather Center so that we can do that and people don't have to rely on the private sector and lose out. So thank you.
Representative Curran.
Thank you, Chair. And similar thoughts along the lines of Rep. Greenman. But first, I just want to start out with, we clearly have a gap that needs to be filled that is causing danger to people, causing harm to people. And I think that in itself is worthy of this conversation and trying to find solutions. Whenever I see bills, though, that are funding a very specific sort of product or company, my mind sort of jumps to how are we doing our best to invest in Minnesota-based companies to the best that we can do, understanding that Minnesota doesn't have all of these services here in our state to offer, right? So I get a little bit of hesitation when we're working with a large private company and having state dollars that never come back to the state. I'd really love to see us make a more concerted effort to try to, keep these funds in the pockets of Minnesotans who, and rather than like getting our state money out nationally. I will say though, I really appreciate, we're looking at information from ClimaVision, and I do truly appreciate the emphasis on climate change and how that is volatile and it's a real thing that we have to be paying attention to, and that it's something that is causing more frequent, intense storms, floods, droughts, that's disrupting every aspect of folks' lives. And so in that regard, I think this is a great solution to, tackle what we're seeing from climate change. But, I also, at the same time, on the very same, page that has that information, another, highlighted issue is that extreme weather is bad for trading. And for traders, extreme weather represents major risk. Energy prices are volatile. Sort of talking about how, not being able to anticipate weather changes is critical for maintaining profitability. That weather can wreak havoc on trading portfolios. My senses kind of go up when I start hearing things like that about, is this about doing the right thing? Is this about making money? What is our actual goal here? So I appreciate all the work. I do think we need to fill this gap. I'm not trying to block any sort of bill, but just want to voice that when we're talking about these issues and who we're giving our money to, I'd like to dive a little deeper into that.
Mr. Bonneman.
Mr. Chair, Representative, the bill does not call out ClimaVision specifically. The bill is for an RFP so that radar companies can come in and bid on this project. We happen to be working with ClimaVision because I feel like they were a nationwide leader in this area, and we could get something put up in the Wendell area as kind of a proof of concept, because when you're talking about public-private partnerships and this type of thing, it's taken a lot for us to get to this point to even say, hey, look what it can do. And now we have some of those case studies from Wendell. We have the snow squall warnings that were issued, and these people at Wendell are going, what's a snow squall warning? We never get this, And so they're actually seeing the benefits of the data. To the other things that you talked about, and like I said previously, I hope whoever bids on it makes money and puts more radars up. I hope their competition comes in and puts more radars up, but I think it's going to benefit us all.
Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just reading a little bit more about ClimaVision, I have a concern. First of all, as a flight attendant, I love a good radar. It's pretty much how we know we're going home in one piece. So I appreciate this and in all efforts to make sure that we don't have these gaps. But it does talk about, and seems to be a pretty big talking point about your federal collaboration, which, Representative Greenman talked a little bit about, but as the Trump-Musk administration continues to gut NOAA and their partners, what is your plan to fill in those gaps? I mean, you think you have a gap now? When they keep cutting these essential programs, it's going to be catastrophic. So what is your plan as you lean heavily on this collaboration to basically take over when what we have been used to is left in pieces?
Remind the members that we are discussing Bill 697 today. If you have questions about that for the testimoniers.
It's directly related, Mr. Chair.
And to that, Mr. Chair, if I could just, again.
Yes, Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, we can control what we can control here today. I get the awareness, the concerns. I understand. But what we're trying to do here today is come up with a plan right now of what we do know. And we need to be able to try to find an efficient way to make our state safer with what we have in front of us today. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, but I do know that we've got companies that are willing to do this. We've got Mr. Bonema and others around the state who are working hard to try to get this in front of us so we get it moving. If other things come in front of our way, we'll deal with it when we get there. So I'm hoping that we can move forward with what we have in front of us today, Mr. Chair.
Representative Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Correct. And that's what my question is about. If we're going to spend $1.3 million and ongoing $2 million, I think we should hear what the plan is as we're watching 1,300 or 13,000 possible job cuts with NOAA. And so we are very much going to need to rely heavily on these other alternatives. So I would love to know, as we're looking at that, what the plan is for ClimaVision to meet that need.
No, go ahead.
Ms.
Mr.
Good,
Chair.
and I assume that this system wasn't invented in the last 3 weeks, that this has been a plan. The tragedy that happened in the first responder happened under the previous administration. This is not technology that was developed since the last election and something that was in the plan. Ms. Good, to the question from Representative Byrd.
Mr. Chair, Representative, thank you for your question. We had a strong relationship with NOAA and the National Weather Service in the prior administration, and we have a very strong relationship with them now. We are collaborating very cooperatively and have been for many years. I think that the present time, both from a weather perspective and the types of scenarios that we're seeing and the uncertainty at the federal level, reinforces the need for redundancies and some stability in weather infrastructure. We are doing this all across the country, and we're being asked similar questions, frankly. And we are even more energized to ensure that we have data flowing and infrastructure in place to protect states, to protect communities, and to provide the necessary data to our federal partners. These radars, if for some reason some other sensor or technology went offline, because we have a full back end that is supported by our team that's running 24 hours a day, we know that those radars are going to be online. So if something were to happen that we can't possibly predict, as Representative Baker alluded to, these sensors will be online. Thank you.
Representative Feist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just listening to this testimony and thinking about my life experience and how 20 years ago this August will be the anniversary of when I evacuated here from New Orleans right before Hurricane Katrina. And I remember evacuating on a Saturday, and it was like a beautiful day, not a cloud in the sky, but the cars were backed up from the gas stations all the way down the road because we all knew that a hurricane was coming and we needed to evacuate. And so I was able to evacuate to safety and then ended up here in Minnesota, met my husband a week later, and here I am. Anyway, I just wanted to share that just to highlight that having that notice was just so critical. This is really important, and like you said, there's this uncertainty at the federal level, this need for redundancy and for making sure that our systems here in Minnesota meet the need. So thank you.
Lee Moeller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just, I'll be brief. I think that we all agree that this is a needed service. There is no question about that, and it's needed for safety. I think what's concerning is Project 2025 says that NOAA is the primary component of the climate change alarm industry and calls for it to be broken up and downsized and fully commercialize its forecasting operations. And so I think for us, what we see here is that sort of going into effect with this bill where we would be sort of privatizing this industry. it's something where the federal government should be continuing to pay for, and with the infrastructure needs that they have with their own radars, we want to make sure that they're continuing those, that they have staff on the ground. And so again, it's not like what this bill is trying to do, it's sort of the broader picture of what it's doing in light of what we know Project 2025 says, and with the cuts that the Trump and Musk administration have made already. So I'm glad Representative Baker brought this bill. I'm glad to continue discussing it. I just want to raise those concerns again on behalf of our caucus here.
Representative Baker, would you like to close?
Yeah, just briefly, Mr. Chair and members, thank you so much for the conversation. House File 697 really does address some significant public safety issues, as we've heard. The bill will provide a full weather radar coverage in every corner of the state. Let's get it off the ground, and I would appreciate your support for House File 697. Thank you.
With that, House File 697 as amended is laid over. Thanks, Chair Baker and testifiers. Next bill up will be House File 1814. I almost said it wrong. Chair Baker, please come to the table with your testifiers. Chair Baker, since you are not a member of this committee, I will move House File 1814 before the committee. Since your bill includes a general fund appropriation to the Department of Public Safety, I will be laying this over for a possible inclusion in the committee omnibus. Chair Baker, please explain your bill.
That's okay.
Baker.
I've been called
I'm
Baker
sorry.
before, many times.
I think it was funny when she did it last year, but
I know. So this is, first of all, this is a continuation of something that was passed about 2 years ago. Lee Moeller included in her public safety bill, so thank you. And just a little background of myself, folks. I am a volunteer EMT for 31 years. Our service runs into 3 counties, 2 states, and 2 nations because we provide EMT service for the Sisseton-Wahpeton tribe. And we know that communication is so important. Several years back in the late 90s, because I got started in the mid-90s, police, fire, and ambulance could only communicate by calling dispatch, and then dispatch would call police. Well, in the late 90s, we had a situation in Browns Valley, which I did not know that on the east side, we had officers with their weapon drawn. Ambulance showed up on the west side, that's me, and I walked into the house. And I found out that the person was not armed. That's not the best way to find out that the person in the house is not armed. I got my butt chewed out, but that's okay. Since then, of course, scene safety, but that's because we weren't able to communicate. Since then, we've been able to, with the armor radios, been able to communicate. And this came top and center 2 years ago when Clinton, Minnesota, had that fire in the grain that's in the district I used to rep, a grain elevator where we had 18 agencies involved to save the community because the grain elevator was in the center. Actually, the Browns Valley Beardsley First Responders was there. We were involved with it because we work with Beardsley. So it works. And the reason it's so important, folks, I am going to show you, this is the pager that I got in 1995. 2 years ago, it went dead. This is the pager I have now. That is the pager I got replaced with, folks. Okay? And this is actually a good one. When the pager went off Sunday night, I thought, shoot, this is actually, you can understand them. There's many times at night when I get to run, because when I get back from St. Paul, I'm pretty much on call. I take Friday nights, which if you want, anybody in EMS knows Friday nights and Saturday nights are the most active ones. So I take Saturday night and Friday nights, and I had to run the weekend before. I couldn't even understand. I just showed up, called dispatch on the radio. So this is the stuff that we're talking about. And as you can see, I don't know if this is this in everybody's handout? If not, I'm going to just do briefly.
That is included in the handout, Representative Becker.
What's that?
That is included in the handout.
Okay, cool. Just highlight two things. With the grant that we passed, 178 entries applied for, and when they applied for the $2 million grant, they asked for $23 million in requests for grant funds with the average of 130,000. 77 applicants were ultimately selected for the funding, which is great, with an average of $51,000. So, and if you look, we'll notice that the city of Browns Valley did get rewarded, but they focused that money for fire, and this is why I have this pager. So, with that said, I have some testifiers. We'll let, you want to, okay, go ahead.
Thank you,
Officer.
Representative Becker. Testifiers, we have 4 other bills to hear today, or 3 other bills to hear today. So with that, looks like it's going to be Chief Silford from Sartell. Go ahead, state your full name and begin your testimony.
Mr. Chair, Committee, Chief Silliard, S-I-L-G-J-O-R-D. I'm the Chief of Police and the Director of Public Safety for the City of Sartell, so I oversee police and fire operations. And thinking about this bill, the quality and timeliness of our public safety services is truly on the line for many Minnesotans. When we talk about our communications network, we had a giant increase in that in the Armor network after 9/11, and that was a great piece for us for interoperability, but has continued to degrade equipment over time as equipment does. Communications across this network is one of the most crucial operational necessities we have. Public safety in Minnesota is heavily dependent on mutual aid and assistance across agencies, as the majority of us need that aid to manage any large-scale or critical incident that occurs within our cities or counties. Aging equipment and updates to radio encryption standards threaten this communication pipeline, which has seen disruptions already, especially when it comes to cross-disciplinary communication, as Mr. Becker had stated as well. Handheld radios, just a little bit bigger than the pager you saw here, are $3,000 to $6,000 a piece, depending on needs, and can even be upwards of $10,000. Last year, agencies like mine did submit for funding from the $2 million that was allotted, and unfortunately, many of us were denied, including my agency. This is only a fraction of our needs. As you heard, there's $30 million in needs that was allotted for, asked for in that allotment that was not granted. To put things in perspective, my agency alone would need $600,000 in radios for our police and fire divisions to update the entire system. And we are considered a mid-sized agency for our state. Our request for funding in this bill is not for specialized programming or flashy new equipment. It is quite literally to help maintain and continue delivering effective service to our citizens. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Chief. Next testifier, Jill Roret from Metropolitan Emergency Services. State your full name and correctly, and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. My name is Jill Roret. I'm the Executive Director of the Metropolitan Emergency Services Board. We are one of 7 regional emergency communications or services board across the state. Thank you for allowing me to testify in support of this bill. We thank you for passing the grant funds in 2023. I would note, in addition to what has previously been said, there were many larger agencies that did not apply. They thought the grant was focusing on smaller agencies. So the need is actually much greater than what the applications provided for. One of the major additional factors for the needs of just upgrading outdated radios is a new rule from the FBI regarding how criminal justice information can be transmitted over the radio, and now it must be transmitted using the highest encryption possible. Many agencies in the state of Minnesota don't have radios that are capable of that at all and might require complete radio replacement, and some also will require simple software upgrades. And while those may have been planned at one point in time, this new rule has moved that up in the planning process. While that is happening, radio system managers are also planning on additional large funding needs for the armor system. One thing you will probably start hearing about is in 2029, the system vendor has stated they will no longer support our dispatch consoles. There are, based on information we got in 2024, 736 consoles across the state that need to be replaced, and they are estimating that the total cost of replacement will be between $55.8 and $92 million. That's something that local governments simply cannot bear alone on property tax dollars. Additionally, there are other pieces of equipment that are supposed to go out of service again in the 2030s that will be a similar price tag or even higher. So every little bit of support from the legislature counts in helping these local governments to plan and purchase the needed public safety equipment. Because the Armor system has been so successful, folks really want to be able to do right by public safety and the public and having good, clear communications. That's done by the Armor system. Thank you.
Thank you. Last testifier listed is Steve Schmidt, Meeker County Commissioner. State your full name and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Steve Schmidt, SCHMITT. I am here on behalf of Association of Minnesota Counties today, but also as a member of Eden Valley Fire and Rescue Squad as Assistant Rescue Chief. I am previous Emergency Management Director for the City of Eden Valley and Vice Chair of Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board, and I'm the past Chair of AMC's Public Safety Policy Committee. I'm proud to represent the Association of Minnesota Counties in expressing our strong support for House File 1814, which proposes funding for grants to purchase and upgrade equipment for an Allied Radio Matrix for emergency response or the Armor radio system. The Armor system is utilized by Minnesota's law enforcement, fire services, emergency medical personnel, and another thing to keep in mind is every city that has a public works department needs to correspond with your emergency management in times of an emergency too. So it brings and your ambulance services. So everybody's utilizing a service at the same time is where things get tricky, and that's why we need to upgrade these systems. Despite its foundational role in public safety, the Armor system faces significant challenges due to aging equipment. Many local agencies are operating with first or second generation Armor radios that lack modern features. These outdated devices hinder effective communication and pose safety risks to both the responders and the public. For many local governments, especially in rural areas, securing necessary funds for these upgrades is a significant financial burden. Additionally, the Minnesota Emergency Communication Networks published a comprehensive assessment in 2020 on the Armor system, which highlighted concerns about the long-term sustainment of the network. The report emphasized the need for detailed asset inventories and replacement plans for components not covered under current support agreements. The passage of House File 1814 will have a significant impact on public safety across Minnesota. The ability for counties to upgrade equipment will ensure that all responders can communicate effectively, reducing response times and improving coordination during emergencies. The grant program provides much-needed financial assistance to local governments and tribal entities, particularly those in rural areas, ensuring that all communities have access to modern communication tools. By facilitating the replacement of outdated equipment, House File 1814 supports the long-term sustainability and reliability of the Armor system. The Association of Minnesota Counties strongly supports House File 1814. We believe the bill represents a critical investment in our state's public safety infrastructure and ensures that our first responders have the tools they need to protect and serve our communities effectively. Outdated communication systems only add to the burden that an already short-staffed and aging, as in myself, aging, public safety community requires to do a good job supporting the public. I thank you for your time and attention today.
Thank you. Representative Hollins.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank you, Representative Backer, for bringing this. I think this is a great example of a public safety need that, you know, we can all understand and recognize and that applies across the board. My question is, you know, when I hear this need and I hear how outdated and listening, great example, love the prop, bringing the actual radio, that was great. But when I hear this, it makes me think about how quickly our technology has advanced over, say, the past 5 years, 10 years, and making this investment now, even if, and we clearly, what you're asking for is not the entire amount, right? As you mentioned, it's a lot larger. I guess my question is twofold. So how do we ensure that we're making investments that are going to last us a substantial amount of time? And then second of all, what's the plan for being able for local government to be able to cover the changes and upgrades that need to be done? I want to empower local governments to be able to do some of this on their own, because as you know, right, the legislature is not like a sure thing, and it's a fight every time you come here, and y'all are driving from long, far away to come here and make your case. And so I'm just trying to figure out, like, how do we sustainably do this? How do we do it in a way that it lasts? And then also, how do we make sure that local governments are able to equip their officers and first responders in a way that is meaningful and that supports your community and what your community needs in that moment?
Yes.
Representative Backer, would you say that, you know, we've got a bigger project coming along. We anticipate a presentation from Department of Public Safety is coming up once we get past a couple of the deadlines here on what's next, answering your question. And you're right, the what's next question is a huge number statewide, but Representative Backer, we're looking at basically a Band-Aid to get through till we get to that next one. Go ahead.
Yeah, briefly, public safety is a local, state, federal, and what we did when I was the mayor in city of Browns Valley, I know a lot of others did, we did put X amount away for stuff like this. But as we know with the new requirements, that's a little bit more than what it should be. I'm a big believer that the state should be putting in so much a year to help, so every 5-10 years, we're in essence replacing everything. The need in the state of Minnesota is $250 million to replace all the radios. So it's locals working on stuff, it's state working, and replacing a little bit every years, so we stay up with that technology and so forth. It's just like police replacing their vehicles, fire replacing, you put so much away for capital investments, and then every 10 years you replace it, or 5 years. So it's working together with that. And for many years, up to 2 years ago, there was no money that the state put in to help with public safety for the armor radios.
Okay. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Representative Backer. By trade, I'm a firefighter for the city up there in Duluth, so these radios are very key to a lot of the things that we do. Everybody carries one. It's beat into us that you would not leave the rig without it. It is our #1 life safety piece. We've had those issues in big buildings where in the old systems, before we had upgraded radios, you couldn't call out if you wanted to. It just doesn't work. So this system has made a difference. It has made our job safer. I know it's made life safer for our law enforcement officers as well. But kind of piggybacking on Representative Collins, like, this is just a drop in the bucket. I mean, based on if you're buying, you know, if you're looking at $5,000 a shot for a radio, this is going to buy 400 radios a year. In Minnesota, there's 774 different fire departments. And so I'm glad there's a bigger and hopefully a more robust conversation about how we fund this going forward. I know there's, you know, federal grants with the AFG grants, at least on the fire side, to offset some of this. But relying on that and grants like these to fund that life safety equipment, I think is not the best option going forward. So look forward to that conversation. Just more of a comment than anything else about how we figure out how to fund this going forward, so we don't keep having to play catch up every single time.
Representative Woody.
Thank you, Chair Novotny. Representative Baker, and I think touching on a little bit with Representative Backer, I'm sorry,
It's okay, that's okay. I get you and Novotny mixed up all the time.
And kind of what Representative Johnson said, is there any way of looking at the program like we look at our body armor and having a system and grant program that way where it's rotating through? I think you're talking 5 to 10 years, new people coming on. Just a suggestion to look at as you look long-term, because I do think that huge amount of money is going to be tough as we move forward on some of these budgets. So just a thought. Thank you.
Good recommendation, thank you.
Representative Backer.
Yeah, I'm sorry, thank you, Chair. Good recommendation, Representative Whitty.
Lee Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Backer, for this. It definitely is important, and I'm interested in some long-term funding sources as well, perhaps through the 911 account, and not taking from what's already there, but maybe adding a little bit more surcharge onto that to cover this. So I'm really looking forward to some discussions about how we can fund this from a long-term place rather than just trying to keep putting these little Band-Aids on it. Thank you.
Closing remarks, Representative Backer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Novotny. Police, fire, ambulance, and public works, we're out there protecting the public, and it is so important to communicate. It allows us to save lives and do what people expect during their most challenging times during emergencies. Thank you, members, and thank you, Chair Novotny.
Thank you, Chair Backer, and thank you for your testifiers for coming down. Next bill on the agenda is laid over. Next bill on the agenda is 1567. Representative Duran, please come to the testifier table with your testifier. Representative Duran, would you like to move your bill before the committee with a recommendation that it is re-referred to the Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law Committee?
Yes, Chair.
Representative Duran, I see you have a D3 amendment to the bill. Please explain what the amendment does.
So the original bill was set up on the in addition to the judiciary bill that was passed last biennium. This one's actually separating the judicial statute along with the peace officer statute and cleaning up a little bit more language.
Thank you. Questions for Representative Duran on the D3 amendment? All in favor of the D3 amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. The amendment carries. Representative Duran, to your bill as amended.
Perfect. First off, I would like to start out by saying this is my first time coming off into this committee, and I really appreciate Representative Steer passing out some chocolate with my love and support. I just wanted to push that out there real quick. So I gotta try. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Chair and committee members. Today I would like to present to you House File 1567, a bill that is set to assist with safety of peace officers and correctional officers' private data. Last biennium, a similar bill was passed allowing for judicial officers and information to be more protected. This bill seeks to add peace officers and correctional officers to the list. The role of peace officers and correctional officers is to serve and protect their communities, often putting their lives in risk, upholding the law. As the complexity of modern society evolves, so do the challenges that officers face. This is particularly concerning with their safety and security. With the rise of digital technology, protecting personal data has become paramount within our society. Ensuring that privacy and safety of peace officers and correction officers not only safeguards their well-being, but also fortifies public safety. Peace officers and correction officers are increasingly becoming targets for criminals and malicious actors. In an age where information can be accessed or leaked online, like personal data about officers, including home addresses, phone numbers, and family details, can lead to targeted threats. High-profile cases of doxing, the act of publicly revealing previously private personal information, demonstrates the potential danger dangers faced by officers and when their data is compromised. By implementing strict data protection measures, officers can mitigate these risks and work to better serve our communities. I have been a victim of my personal information being released and the threats to my own safety. This has not only put me in danger, but we seem to overlook the emotional, psychological, and/or potential physical harm it may cause to my family. My family will too suffer because of the career I chose to serve in my community. Not only do I have to work to protect myself, but then when I had to go to work and worry about protecting my family as well, while trying to protect the community. This does not touch how much this can affect the family structure. It is devastating sometimes. This builds a step towards protecting those who protect us. The safety and security of peace officers and correctional officers are paramount to an effective functioning of any community. As officers face increasingly sophisticated threats, it is essential for their personal data to be protected vigorously. By prioritizing data privacy, law enforcement agencies can create a safer environment for their officers. Protecting the data of those who serve the community not only is a safeguard for the individual involved, but also a critical component of maintaining public trust and safety. Together, we can ensure that peace officers and correctional officers can focus on their mission of serving and protecting without compromising their safety through vulnerable data. Thank you, and I will pass this along to my testifiers.
Thank you. Could you have your testifier state their name and begin their testimony? I believe Chief Podany, are you first?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. My name is Brian Podany, P-O-D-A-N-Y. I'm the Chief of Police and Safety Services Director for the City of Blaine. I also serve on the board for the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association. I don't have any chocolate, though, but I'm not asking for any money. So every day, we have tens of thousands of interactions across our state involving law enforcement and corrections. People want us there when they need us and not when they don't. And accordingly, we regularly are involved in hostile situations. We strive to treat others with respect, and the extreme vast majority of the time things work out, even when we have to take away people's freedoms. But there remains an element of society that no matter what we do, will hate us for simply being who we are and what we do. That can be someone who's truly evil, someone who's emotionally agitated due to a domestic assault arrest for beating up their spouse or partner, or someone who suffers from extreme mental illness and is delusional about reality. We heavily educate and train ourselves on how to manage this at work. However, time and time again, we've seen an element of society that becomes personally fixated on us and harming us or our families, and we hear about this countless times across the country. I want to share just one example I'm currently going through. We have an individual in our community. He is severely schizophrenic. He's been homicidal. He has attacked family members with weapons, made multiple threats to kill people, and we've had countless interactions with him in our city. He's even been civilly committed multiple times. I've never, however, personally met him at all. Yet for some reason, he's become fixated on me and going after not only me, but my family. And to make matters worse, in his past, he worked in the IT world, so he's very adept at navigating the internet to come after me. I've had to set up safety plans with my children, notify friends and neighbors, and have to live in fear. Not because of something I did, but due to somebody else's delusional state. And to make matters worse, multiple of my kids have diminished capacities to protect themselves. Intense safety planning and living in fear should not be a part of my kids' lives or mine or any of our staff, but unfortunately it is. If I screw up at work, there's a lot of avenues to deal with that. We have internal agency controls. We've given much greater control to the post board. I would argue that we're just as at risk, if not more, than judicial officials for our safety, even outside of work. And we push for transparency at work. We've pushed through that for the Chiefs Association and my agency and across the state. But away from work, we should be afforded the same freedoms to not live in fear that others do. And I think this is important legislation for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Podany. Next listed is Lieutenant Chris Thompson of the Cass County Jail.
Thank you,
State
Mr.
your full
Chairman.
name and begin your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and all members of the committee. Before I begin, I'd like to just take a moment to thank Representative Duran for his work on this bill. It's a very important bill for law enforcement across our state. And I'd like to thank you guys for giving me a little bit of time to come in and offer some testimony. My name is Lieutenant Chris Thompson, and I'm the jail administrator for Cass County Sheriff's Office. And I'm here for a couple reasons today. Number one is to offer support for House File 1567 as it aims to expand privacy protections for our licensed peace officers. And that's great, and it's a nice step in the right direction to protect our protectors. This topic is gaining traction across the United States, and if this bill would pass, Minnesota will join states like California and Colorado, Utah, Idaho, Texas, Florida, and New Jersey. I'm sure I'm forgetting a few, but they've already enacted this similar legislation and proven their dedication to safeguard those that are tasked with enforcing the law. I would, however, propose an amendment to this bill like the states I just mentioned. I would ask that this bill include the dedicated civilian non-licensed officers who serve critical roles in our justice system as correction officers in our local jails and for the Department of Corrections, as well as our probation officers and parole agents. These officers deserve just as much protection as they have daily interactions with the same people that our licensed officers and our judges do. And actually, it's usually for a more extended period of time. And throughout the courses of their duties, they may have to enforce discipline, let's say, for a jail rule infraction or a probation violation. And with that decision, it's going to affect their personal freedoms. And unfortunately, in some of these cases, those that may be incarcerated mistake this for a personal attack on their civil rights or their civil liberties and take the stance that this officer is doing this because they don't like him or they're trying to get back at him. And those feelings can turn to animosity and sometimes lead to threats of violence to these officers and their families. And these officers are just doing their jobs. They're carrying out duties that are mandated by the court. I've been a licensed police officer in the state of Minnesota for 27 years now and kind of have a unique perspective on this topic. The first 17 years of my career was in patrol with the law enforcement side, and the last 10 now have been in jail administration. And as a jail administrator, I have the honor of working next to corrections officers every day. I have a great working relationship with our probation department and our parole agents. And so I kind of have a front seat to look into the valued work that these individuals do. And unfortunately, I also am witness to the threats that are made to these folks as well for simply doing their job. So in conclusion, I'll wrap things up. I feel it's imperative that we extend these protections to anyone working in the criminal justice field where their primary duties are to arrest or incarcerate or supervise individuals, and when their decision can impact that individual's freedom. Chair Novotny and committee members, I thank you for allowing me to testify here today, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. We have two more testifiers scheduled, with Sheriff Ramsey and Attorney Chris Maddow. Sheriff Ramsey, you want to begin? State your full name and begin your testimony.
Chair Novotny, Sheriff Gordon Ramsey, last name is Ramsay. And Chair Novotny, members of the committee, good afternoon. I am the elected St. Louis County Sheriff, and today I speak on behalf of the Minnesota Sheriff's Association, representing 87 elected sheriffs across our state in support of House File 1567. The Minnesota Sheriff's Association is also aligned with the Minnesota Police and Peace Officers Association on this bill. Our peace officers are the backbone of community safety, dedicating their lives to protect and serve, yet in the course of their duties, they often face significant risks, not just on the streets, but also in their personal and family privacy. The digital age has made it alarmingly easy for individuals to access and disseminate personal information, which can be used to intimidate and harm officers and their loved ones. Some firsthand experiences. Last month, we had a meth-induced psychosis individual go to one of our deputies' homes. They run a daycare out of their home, and he kind of blended in with the parents picking up the kids and left a note on the deputy's door. Obviously, that caused, and the note was, please quit putting chips in my brain. Obviously, very concerning for the deputy and their family. I remember the family looking at me asking if I can keep them safe. They were that frightened. A couple of personal experiences. My wife has had people show up at the door armed and angry, demanding to talk to me, as well as after I had 2 law enforcement officers shot the next night, one of my neighbors calls and says, Gordon, someone just fired a round in your backyard. This is midnight. And my wife let out a primal scream that I will never, ever forget. So we can't forget how the families are impacted by the jobs we have. And as I mentioned, it's becoming increasingly concerning how easy it is to access information on our officers and peace officers on where they live. 1567 seeks to address this issue by extending the same personal information protections currently afforded to our judicial officials and extending that to our police officers. By doing so, we acknowledge the unique risks they face and take a definitive step to safeguard their privacy. It's not just about data protection. It's about ensuring our officers can perform their duties without the looming fear of personal retaliation. And ultimately, it's about reinforcing commitment to those who stand on the front lines every day. In supporting 1567, we send one clear message, and that is Minnesota values its peace officers and is committed to protecting them both professionally and personally. And I urge the committee to pass this vital legislation, ensuring that our officers and their families receive the privacy and protections they deserve. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Sheriff Ramsey. Next, Chris Mantle, state your full name and begin your testimony.
Christopher W. Mantle. I am an attorney, been licensed to practice law since 1992, and I served as the counsel for Ryan Londrigan, who was the Minnesota State Trooper that was charged murder, manslaughter, and first-degree felony assault. On July 31 at approximately 2:17 a.m., Trooper Londrigan was forced to use deadly force against Ricky Cobb when he attempted to flee from a lawful arrest and put the lives of all 3 troopers and the public in danger. On August 2nd, I was retained by Trooper Londrigan, who came to my office. He was 26 years old with his wife, Grace, 26 years old. She also brought their 9-month-old son to my office at the time. The next day, there was a gentleman by the name of Cortez Rice that made a post on Facebook. You might recognize that name. Cortez Rice was the person that did the live stream in the Loring Park condominiums with respect to going up to the judge in the Kimberly Potter's trial in order to try to intimidate her, in order to force her to make that trial be public. Cortez Rice on August 3, 2023, posted Minnesota State Trooper Ryan Londrigan, the officer who killed Ricky Cobb II. We need to get all information on him. Then shortly thereafter, he posted the Hennepin County online property information page for Ryan and Grace Londrigan, including their home address. This was then reshared by numerous people, and one of the commenters noted that Ryan and Grace lived in a neighborhood that was dominated by the Lowe's gang, which in October 2024, members of it were indicted for gun trafficking, drug trafficking, and conspiracy to commit murder. Another poster said, "Don't worry, we will get another officer. We'll be 6 feet under very soon." Another poster, this guy lives right among us. These people shouldn't be able to kill us and live amongst us. We don't like killers in our neighborhoods. And it was shared on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and other websites. I advised Ryan and Grace to leave their home immediately. I offered to have them stay at my home. They refused because they were worried about putting my family's life in danger. They went from Airbnb to Airbnb because they were afraid to stay in one place too long. And during breaks in the criminal process, they went to Connecticut to stay with Ryan's parents. On August 4, the Cobb family began reposting Ryan's address, and on October 7, 2023, Ryan's Ring video showed a car slowing down outside of his home and taking pictures of it. January 3, another post by Ricky Cobb's brother, who did a video that said, "If John Wick killed 400 people over his dog, you think I'm playing when it comes to my brother." February 23, 24, another vehicle slowly went outside of Ryan's home, down the alleyway, and stopped in front of their home. All of his information was available on the Hennepin County website. He had no idea as a 26-year-old to put his house into a trust. He's doesn't have a battery of lawyers on his side, civil ones at that. I'm asking that, I live this. I didn't live this nearly to the degree that police officers live this to their extent. But I sat across a table and watched some kids, basically, 26-year-old with a newborn, scared out of their mind and then more worried about my family than their own. This bill, to me, is about as easy of a lift as you get. And I think that having this information public undermines the public trust in the government's ability to protect those who protect us. And I urge you to pass it.
Thank you. Members, questions for the testifiers? Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, a question just for House Research that I wanted to just clarify that the new sections in the DE3 on pages 3 and I guess into the I suppose all the way to page 6, that these are simply replicating the similar provisions related to judicial officers, and then adding the new public safety officers, a person involved in public safety. Sort of how do they compare with the provisions right now related to judicial officers? I just want to make sure we understand that.
There's a lot of
Maybe
noise.
Mr. Diebel, perhaps, or not sure.
Filling in for Ben Johnson.
Mr. Chair, Nathan Hopkins from
Nathan,
House
I'm sorry.
Representative Pinto, yes, the provisions in the DE3 amendment are identical to the existing law protecting personal information for judicial officials. They've just been duplicated and placed in another section of statute.
Okay. And then-
Representative Pinto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And then the other question is, I actually noticed that section 4 of the original bill as introduced is actually not in the DE3, which relates to publishing personal information of judicial officer being expanded, and just curious about how that compares with what is within the DE3. If anybody knows.
Mr. Chair, Representative Pinto, so the bill as introduced amended the criminal statute specific to judicial officials to add law enforcement officials. However, there is an existing criminal statute on the books regarding the disclosure of personal information about law enforcement officials. So rather than amend the judicial official criminal statute, the DE amendment amends the existing statute specific to law enforcement officials.
Okay. Helpful.
Representative Pinto.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. That's helpful clarification. It looks like that was a sort of duplicative in the original bill and been removed in the DE3. All right, thank you. That's helpful.
Representative Kern.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Representative, for finding me on the floor today to chat about our bills that sort of work together. Folks who were here last biennium might remember our conversations where I think it was in Judiciary Committee, we had a full discussion about the judicial officer protections, and some folks wanted to narrow the scope at that time of who it would apply to, just considering that could be a large amount of people we're talking about. And then in Public Safety Committee, the other side wanted to expand it, as you can imagine, to public safety officers. Just to complete transparency on my part, I meant what I said at the time when I said we've got a starting point. Let's see what issues we need to flush out, and I'm happy to apply it to other folks. And so I'm here today to say I do support extending this protection to officers, and I appreciate that you're bringing this forward and that have done the work on it to try to make sure that it mirrors the law that we passed last biennium. And so I think we'll get into some more judiciary-related questions at that next stop, and I'd love to work with you on that just to make sure that we're still making sure that these are parallel with each other. Couple questions, or I should say one issue that I had talked to you privately about, but just to have it on the record. One of the major concerns was how it would work with the county recorder's office property records. Obviously, that's a concern where people can find information in property records, but there's also concerns about who needs to access that information and why. And so I've got a bill that was just introduced this week that addresses those technical fixes. So as we work forward, I just invite you to take a look at my language and see if we might need to adopt those technical fixes on this aspect as well, so we're not running into the same issue and then trying to fix it for you next year. So if we could fix that ahead of time, if we need to, I'd love to do that with you. I do have a question for, this might be for our research, but I'm curious if who this then would apply to, if it is folks who are currently licensed, is it anyone who's ever been licensed in the state of Minnesota, ever been licensed anywhere?
Mr. Hoffman. Mr. Diebel, they're pointing at you.
Mr. Chair and members, on page 3 of the DE amendment, it defines the scope of the protections for this new section 626.97. Peace officer means who is licensed under, so it's an active license, as well as the correctional officer has the meaning given in it's a cross-reference to 241.026, but that refers to those who are currently serving as local and state correctional officers. So it would be those actively employed in those positions as well as their family.
Thank you, Mr. Diebel. Representative Curran, are you asking because if you look at the judicial standards that we passed last year, they cover even retired. We don't have that provision, so maybe that's something you can work on.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just looking primarily for clarification, and honestly, as kind of a favor to you, Representative, that I expect in the next committee stop, if it's not asked here today, that you'll probably be asked about how many people this is going to apply to, because then that sort of tells us what the process on the data privacy, if that's going to create a large impact, a small impact. Just kind of a general question that typically comes up, and we're talking about data privacy there. So maybe get some numbers on how many folks are we talking about? Because I know that was a big piece of information folks were looking for on both sides last year. So we should maybe get that information. And then I think maybe another question for research. I know you said the language mirrors, are the penalties then, are the penalties now with the DE in alignment with the penalties in the judicial official language?
Mr. Hoffman.
Mr. Chair, Representative Kern, the civil penalties are identical. The criminal penalties have been changed in the DE amendment, so the penalty levels are analogous between the two statutes.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Representative Kern.
Okay, yeah, I think that's all the sort of questions and comments I have for now, but look forward to continuing the work. I really just want to make sure that when we're moving through this process that you get the cleanest version you can get, so we're not trying to make more fixes later.
Thank you.
Representative Duran, response?
I'm looking forward to working with you so we can get this thing through. Thank you very much.
Lead Moller.
Thank you, Mr.
Representative Feist. You were down.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to mention, I had introduced a bill last year, House File 4648, which is a really high bill number. We introduced too many bills last year. But it was like a broader bill to make private data on an individual, including their address, private data. And I know that there are a lot of stakeholder, like people who are feeling vulnerable having their data out there, including like medical professionals. And so my bill was introduced to start the conversation, but I think it's something to think about as we're looking at judicial officers, as we're looking at peace officers. And there obviously is like really big government transparency considerations here, but just maybe this is data that doesn't necessarily serve a public interest, and we can just make it private. And so I just wanted to mention that. I can send you that House file number, and maybe that conversation can continue about the bigger picture. Thank you.
Representative Duran. Lead Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Duran, for bringing this bill forward, and thank you to your testifiers. The experiences that you shared with us that you and your families encountered are pretty awful, and so I'm glad that we're talking about this with this bill. I just want to make sure with Mr. Diebel, how does this bill interact with the public post database? I know we asked you offline, but I just want to make sure we get that on the record.
Mr. Diebel.
Mr. Chair, Representative Mueller, members, and I discussed this with Mr. Hopkins as well. The scope of this bill is the personal information, and in the database, it would not contain the personal information about the officers, and so it wouldn't conflict with that provision.
Lead Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for that, and just want to point out that the criminal changes that are starting on line 2.8, that was a bill that was introduced to provide these criminal penalties for doxing a peace officer. We enacted that in, I think it was 2021. Last year, we enacted the crime of swatting in a bipartisan manner again, and that included peace officers as well. And then just one last question, is there a fiscal note requested? This does create a felony now, and I'm seeing staff nodding heads. I can't, I'm seeing different
If there
things.
isn't, there'll be one. Mr. Walls.
Mr. Chair and members, I don't believe there's one requested on this bill, but I will put one in.
Lead Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I assume now we'll get a fiscal note requested. I mean, I think it still should move on to judiciary. I'm planning on supporting it, moving that, but just want to make sure we tie that up.
Thank you. Closing, Representative, I keep wanting to call you Duran, Deputy Duran. Representative Duran.
I appreciate the time and opportunity to present this bill, guys. This is a very important bill, and looking forward to working with everybody to get it passed. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Representative Duran renews his motion to recommend the House File 1567 as amended is re-referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion prevails and House File 1567 is re-referred to Judiciary. Thank you, Representative Duran, and your testifiers. Next bill on the agenda is House File 1256. This is my bill, and Representative Whitty will be taking the gavel.
Thank you. Chair Novotny, do you want to move House File 1256 before the committee?
I do.
It is my understanding we will be laying this bill over for possible inclusion in the omnibus bill. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Chair Novotny, please begin your testimony.
Thank you, Vice Chair Whitty and members of the committee. Bill 1256 does two things. It makes the funding that was enacted, first started in 2021, and I'd like to recommend, or like to recognize that then Chair of Public Safety, Mariani, who was there and was, this is his bill. At that time, as a response to the reimagining of law enforcement and criminal justice in 21, I believe it was, there were a lot of training mandates that were put in to recognize things that we thought at the time would make a difference in how the community have relations with the law enforcement, and a lot of policies were put in place for training. And in response to that, Chair Mariani, I believe it was him that had the bill, but he was chair at the time, proposed the Philando Castile Memorial Training Fund, which gave $6 million each year to support law enforcement training. And that funding has never been made permanent, so we have to go through this every year. So my bill is to reestablish the funding and make it so it's not sunsetted. And with that, I have some testifiers.
Thank you, Chair Novotny. We have two testifiers, Sheriff Gordon Ramsey, and then up after that, Chief Mitch Johnsrud. Can you just state your name and begin your testimony?
Yes. Mr. Chair and members of the committee, my name is Gordon Ramsey. I'm the St. Louis County Sheriff. And I'm also here representing the Minnesota Sheriff's Association and our 87 elected sheriffs. I'm here strongly to urge the continued funding of the Philando Castile Training Fund. This fund isn't just another budget item. It's a critical investment in public safety and officer preparedness and community trust. And while I love our peace officers, and I think they're very, very special people, we need to keep in mind they are standard issue. The reality is our peace officers make a mediocre wage, and they're not superhuman. They're not without mistake, and they have emotions like everybody else in this room. But the expectations of our peace officers across Minnesota today is that they are flawless, that they always make the right decision in a split second and never succumb to stress or fatigue, and handle every situation with superhuman judgment. As an example of the growing expectations, I recently attended a community meeting where I was asked what kind of training staff receives in handling feral cats. That's a true story. The expectations when I go to community meetings are that, are your officers trained in this? Are your officers trained in that? The expectations of our citizenry is like I've never seen before in my 32 years. So we hire standard issue human beings. How do we get them to the level our communities expect of them? The primary way is through training. Training to develop de-escalation skills, tactics that use best practices, community policing, and sound decision-making under pressure. And these just aren't buzzwords. These are good for community relations and are life-saving tools that reduce the likelihood of force being used and improve outcomes in tense situations. Departments, especially in rural areas with tight budgets, depend on this funding to ensure that officers get the high-quality training that they otherwise could not afford. Without it, we risk creating a gap in officer readiness and community engagement, which can have serious consequences. For many of us, our budgets, over 90% of our budgets, are salary, benefits, and overtime. There's not much left for things like cars, tires, gas, pens, paper clips, and training. Funding the Philando Castile Training Fund is a fiscally responsible investment. It will reduce lawsuits, complaints, and costly mistakes, saving taxpayer dollars in the long run. Well-trained officers are also more confident and less likely to leave the profession, reducing turnover costs. Most importantly, this training increases our peace officers' capabilities and builds public trust, exactly what we all want in this room. When officers engage with communities effectively, cooperation increases, tensions decrease, and overall public safety improves. This is how we move policing forward in Minnesota. The fund works. We see it's making a difference, and ending it would decrease training the staff receives and would be a step backwards for both law enforcement and the communities we serve. I urge you to continue this investment in our peace officers and our communities and our shared future. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Chief Mitch Johnsrud.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to testify this evening. My name is Mitch Johnsrud. That's Johnsrud. I am the Chief of Police of the City of Starbuck, Minnesota. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Minnesota Chiefs of Police Association, who represents approximately 300 police chiefs across the state, along with over 150 command staff. I would also like to thank Representative Novotny for bringing this bill forward. HF 1256 is very important for police agencies across the state. This bill provides critically needed funding for several state mandated. Every officer, police officer needs to to maintain their police officer license. The fundings included in the bill could only be used towards mandated training, which is use of force, training in crisis response, conflict management, cultural diversity, and autism training. I work in a small town, north central Minnesota. Again, 1,400 people, I only have 4 officers. The Philando Castile Training Fund has been our sole source of training for several years. If this fund is not extended, we will not be able to cover the costs for these mandatory training courses. Over 50% of police agencies in Minnesota have fewer than 10 officers. We are very limited in training resources. I'm here today to represent all police chiefs, but I'm specifically here to express the need for small agencies who simply do not have the funding to keep up with all the mandated training requirements if this funding is not extended. Since this fund was created in 2017, we've recognized the importance of having well-trained law enforcement workforce. The training is important to keeping our police officers trained with these important skills. However, the costs associated with attending these specific courses is not sustainable without this type of funding. Again, I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and we look forward to continue our conversations and vitally to this important bills. Thank you.
Thank you. This bill is going to get laid over, and we have one more bill we'd like to get former Rep. Mariani's testimony in. Are there any members' questions on this for the testifiers? Lead Moeller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for bringing this bill. Thanks to our testifiers. Look forward to discussing this further. We know that it's important training. Thank you.
Chair Novotny.
Please support my bill when it comes to the floor. I'd like to thank both testifiers that came quite a distance today.
Thank you. House File 1256 is laid over. Thank you, Chair Novotny, and to your testifiers. The last bill on the agenda is House File 1257. It's Chair Novotny. Do you want to move House File 1257 before the committee with a recommendation? It is re-referred to the General Register.
I do.
Chair Novotny, please begin your testimony.
Thank you. I'm speaking today on House File 1257, which would eliminate the Public Safety Advisory Committee. This is created in 2020 to assist the Peace Officer Standards and Training Board in maintaining policies and regulating peace officers in a manner that promotes and protects human and civil rights. This committee was established in an environment that was highly in need of fixing. And I would be the first to say that this is a committee that originally did have a purpose, but it has outlived its usefulness. It was proposed and implemented post-Floyd criminal justice, and it was proposed by, once again, then Public Safety Chair Mariani. I was the House Republican appointee the last 4 months. I asked to be an original member of this committee. I asked to be reappointed in 2022. I thought the idea could possibly be beneficial, and to be honest, for the first couple of years it was. As some of the policies and statutory changes took effect and local agencies, local governments established community oversight commissions or citizen review boards on their own, the post-advisory committee has become obsolete. It's a board without a need. And I point this out. We had meetings in the last year that it became obvious that the board was obsolete. We had agenda items that we're brainstorming so we could come up with literally a solution to a problem that didn't exist. Have a brainstorming session on things that this committee could do because we had ran out of citizen groups and issues to address. So we literally were having meetings to justify the existence or having a reason to have the meetings. It was at then that I knew that I would be offering this bill and having this discussion today. If this auxiliary committee ceases to exist, there will still be the main post board. The post board will still have citizen members that can be more than able to submit an issue to the board. A review of the recent board agenda meetings, and I'm getting quite a feedback here on the mic. Can they turn it down a little bit, or I'll back up? A review of the minutes indicates that there have been presentations at the main post board that citizens are able to participate and members are able to, and especially the non-law enforcement members of the post board will be able to bring issues in front of the post board. Contrary to all the letters submitted by groups in opposing this bill, all by state-funded commissions or nonprofits that receive a large amount of their funding from the state, the sky will not fall. Concerned citizens will still have access to the board, and the main post board will still grow and evolve, and it will protect the bill, both the rights of both law enforcement professionals and the citizens that they serve. That is my proposal and the reason for this bill, and I'm ready for Chair Mariani.
Thank you. I see former Representative Carlos Mariani has requested to testify on this bill. Welcome back to the House Public Safety Committee. And when you get up there, please begin your testimony.
Chair, why don't you take the center stage, Chair? Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carlos Mariani Rosa, and I come to you as a private citizen today. I used to sit right over there where you are, Mr. Chair. And it's a pretty neat trick for Chair Novotny to come up with a bill to drag me back in a room I didn't really want to be back in.
Yes, you did. You did too.
It's good to see you, Mr. Chair, and you as well, Chair Mueller. We served together on this committee for a number of years. I want to quickly say that I am really impressed by the feistiness of this committee. It's a good thing that y'all are feisty and you go at it. That's how we make good laws. And I'm not going to lie to you. I have no intention to come back and sit and watch your feistiness every day. I love this work, but I don't miss it. And you'll probably get there at some point as well. I'm here to speak against House File 1257. And I want to make several points hopefully very quickly. One, the council in question here was passed into existence as a key feature of the 2020 Minnesota Police Accountability Act that I had the privilege to author, and which was rigorously negotiated by a Republican Senate and a DFL House. It was a bipartisan bill. It was tough work, folks, as most good laws are. The council was just one response to the severe crisis of lost public confidence that Minnesota dangerously faced following the sadistic public murder of George Floyd by a Minnesota licensed police officer. That horrendous act triggered one of the largest public unrests in the history, our history as a people across the nation and here as well. The purpose of the council is to assist the post board in maintaining policies and regulating peace officers in a manner that ensures the protection of civil and human rights. To accomplish this, the statute calls for citizen involvement in policing, policies, regulations, and supervision. Nowhere else in state statute does the law reflect our state's commitment to broadly promoting positive interaction between peace officers and the community. House File 1257 would obscure that statutory expectation, and in doing so would reject the desires of tens of thousands of our neighbors who turned out for days to demand a change to how the state regulates and guides the public servants it licenses for law enforcement. As legislators negotiated a response in 2020 consistent with our state constitution, we knew a vital trust had been broken between our citizens and our state, and we were determined to rebuild that trust. And to do that, we needed to build something different and something better. As opposed to calling for the end of policing and police forces as others were doing at that time, this body bravely led and fought to reclaim the servanthood nature of our public safety systems. The Minnesota House, the body you serve in, understood that a free people expects the policing of law and order to be done abiding by the Minnesota Constitution. That means abiding by the civil and human rights of all citizens. In 2020, when a human life was wrongly taken in violation of this body built this structure at the Minnesota Post Board to make sure that those perspectives stayed at the middle of all decision-making. I have more to say, but time is running, so I'm just going to close this. It's critically important to have this perspective at the state level. I celebrate and welcome the reemergence of similar efforts in our local jurisdictions. We're a state that values local governance. We work awfully hard to make sure this big geographic state that's really diverse, urban, rural, suburban, is able to do its work effectively in a way that matches those communities. And at the same time, however, we have a state constitution with a non-negotiable set of expectations that no matter how locals govern themselves, they govern themselves consistent with our Constitution's demands for honoring, following, uplifting the civil and human rights of every human being in this state. For that, you have to have a centralized body. That's why the Post Board was created 60, 70 years ago, the first in the nation. It was created to provide a uniform set of reviewing and training our peace officers in our state. It frankly didn't do a very good job at that for a long time, quite honestly. It's doing a good job now, and it's still a body that is primarily law enforcement, as it should be. And it's a body that is powerfully informed by citizens in many different ways on the board itself and through this vital council. Members, I plead with you. You all were here most likely in 2020. I can still hear the helicopters flying constantly over our homes. I can see the lights, just the conversations with, fear hanging. We don't want to go back to that. We don't want to break the trust. It comes down to something as simple as that. People have to believe in their government in order to prevent chaos and horrible things from happening. That's why this body was created. It is a symbol of how we as a state acknowledge the central power and wisdom of citizens. Just like they come here to this committee to advise you all, they also exist at the Post to advise them powerfully. So members, Chair Novotny, we served together for, I think, 2 years here, 3, good God. You were a special election. Yeah, that's right. I forgot that. I really enjoyed serving with you. And as I watch you today, I'm really impressed by your command of this important work in public safety and the way you help guide your colleagues through this. But I have to say, this is not a good move. And I would really encourage you not to go forward with it. And I would encourage you members to respectfully reject this proposal. Thank you so much. Maybe Chair Novotny will find another way to drag me back in here. So, thank you all.
I'll send you the link.
Thank you. I'm going to go right to Lead Moeller with the time.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Nice to see you again, Chair Mariani. I just had a quick question about the council members and do the council members get funding to serve on the council? Do they get any payment for that? Who knows the answer to that?
Mr. Wells.
Mr. Wells.
Mr. Chair, Representative Mueller, I'd have to go back and look to see if they are getting compensation, but there is $20,000 in an ongoing appropriation through the post board for this purpose.
Lead Mueller.
Yeah, thank you. It's my understanding that they don't get individually compensated, and I guess the reason I asked was this notion that, Chair Novotny, you sort of suggested that the letters didn't mean anything in the packet because they're nonprofits funded by the state. I don't think that those who participate in this get, like NAMI or Violence Free Minnesota. I'm not sure that they get any extra money for participating on the council, and I think their perspectives in these letters are very important, and I'm not even sure, especially NAMI, how much state funding they even receive. And then the other letter raising concerns about the bill is from a number of state agencies. So I just wasn't quite sure where you're going with that, but just want to make the record clear. And I think that these letters are very compelling as well. And am not ready to, and for the reasons Chair Mariani said, not ready to eliminate this council. And I really hope that you'll consider what the agencies said in the end of their letter, that they would love to chat with you further and discuss some alternative strategies for your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Novotny, you have any closing comments?
Yes, as I said, and I'll point to some of the things that former Chair Mariani said, that it was a different time and things have got a lot better. And local communities and local agencies and local groups have been able to form groups and do oversight commissions. The best work is done at a local level. As I said, and knowing some of the citizens that are on the main post board, I think they do good work, and I think that they would be able to carry this all out. Lead Moeller, my response or my things that I was speaking to, you are right. Yes, there's no paid members of the board other than per diem and travel for members that want to put that in. My point was just that, just to the point that the letters all came from groups like the State Commission of Representing of, the State Commission of, there's people that all have agency. They have the ability to make a change. They can communicate with the representatives of the post board. And with that, I request a yes vote.
Thank you. Chair Novotny renews his motion to recommend that House File 1257 is re-referred to the General Register. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
No.
Motion carries and House File 1257 is referred to the General Register. Thank you, Chair Novotny. Our next committee meeting will be on Wednesday, March 12th at 3 p.m. There being no more business before the committee day, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.